Right, it says I'm streaming, but I mean, I don't even know. I'm assuming it is. Anyway, so I thought I'd try something different today, seeing as every video that I make with this kind of topic, you know, it's all one take anyway. I figured I may as well I can skip the middleman here and just press record and do it all in one take. So, here is my review of Final Fantasy VII plus spoilers and discussion for the ending, because there's a lot to talk about. So you haven't played the game yet, big spoilers ahead for that second part. Right now this is live if you're watching this afterwards, and obviously it isn't, but... So, right off the bat, I think the biggest question is it any good? That is the burning question. You know what, it's a great game. It is an amazing game. I'll tell you what's interesting though, if you look at Metacritic, I think that score has pretty much nailed the kind of the score that I would give the game, if that makes sense. It's around 87-ish, 88. It was what I actually predicted 88 would be the score for this game. User reviews are a bit lower, and I can see why, which is what I will be discussing later on with the ending stuff and the discussion, just because, obviously, I don't want to completely spoil it for people, because there are some differences in the game. So, that being said, is this game good for newcomers who have never played Final Fantasy VII before, and has never played a Final Fantasy before? That's a question which I think is really tough, because there's a big part of me that wants to say yes, because the battle system is really streamlined and it makes sense for modern day gaming. But I think there's so many story beats and elements that just won't make any sense to anybody who hasn't played Final Fantasy VII before. I do think this is definitely catered to people who have played Final Fantasy VII before, or at least know most of the things about the game. Otherwise, you are legit going to be completely just in the dark, not knowing what is going on about a lot of things, especially toward the end, at least. And I think it's weird, because I think a lot of people are probably leaning toward, oh man, this game's incredible, and maybe the ending and all that kind of stuff soured their opinions of it, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. But as a whole, the battle system feels amazing, to be honest. I love the battle system. It does take a little bit getting used to it. It's quite difficult. There's this classic mode, which I don't know who would want to play that, honestly. You just choose what moves you do, which is really weird. It's a very odd game in terms of its design, because it kind of takes the modern day gaming tropes of JRPGs like Final Fantasy 15. Then it also has the kind of classic stop time, choose what happens stuff tacked onto it, which I actually really like. I think it worked really well. It might actually be the best Final Fantasy battle system to this day. In terms of how it feels, it's definitely the most satisfying. It's definitely 10 times better than Final Fantasy 15, which I was not a big fan of the battle system on that game. This one felt great, and especially if you've been hit and you're like, oh, for God's sake, you can just swap to the other character really quickly. It was really intense. The game's actually really hard. Even on normal, I was struggling. I was sweating. This game made me sweat my teats off. Seriously, there's a boss halfway through the game, and it felt like a last boss to me. That's how difficult it was on some parts. Not to say, it's the hardest game in the world, just some of the bosses were very tough, and especially since, you can't swap your materia and all this stuff. I reckon if I had magic, for example, I probably would have been able to kill it a lot easier, but yeah, I didn't have magic equipped, and I just found the boss was really tough, and it lasted forever. That being said, the game did get a little bit easier the more that I played it, especially since I upgraded a materia named Prey. Once I figured that materia was pretty much the best in the game, I found the game a little bit easier. I could just play as Aerith and keep using Prey. Speaking of, it's so cool they get to play as all these characters though. I love how each character feels really unique and they have their own skill set. Barrett is completely different to Cloud, for example. Aerith is completely different to Cloud. Tifa's completely different. Everybody's got their own feel about them. It feels really good. Like, Tifa's so fast and she's just constantly punching, and she's actually the strongest apparently. But Cloud's sword strike is really satisfying, and it's really satisfying playing as Aerith as well, staying back, healing up, just getting a few hits in. I really like that aspect of it. I think it's a really positive change. I think the biggest strength for this game lies in its characterization and dialogue, the cutscenes, the voice acting, all of that stuff. I think is what, in my opinion, kind of justifies the game as being made. I actually played Final Fantasy VII, the original, straight after I played this, I really wanted to play that game. I felt really compelled. And I played the first 10 minutes and I was like, man, I kind of missed the dialogue and the cutscene and the interactions between the new characters already. Because there's just so much going on. I don't know, they're just, it's nice seeing, there's a lot of character development here. Like Aerith and Tifa getting along really nice. It's weird, just seeing people's faces and their emotions and stuff, it really adds to the characters and makes them 100 times better. And that is, if anybody says that the original's better in that regard, they're definitely lying. I'm somebody who, you know, I hold the originals very dear to my heart, and you know, there's a few changes, for example, on this game that I did not agree with, and I didn't really like, and there's a few bits that they cut out which I was kind of annoyed at. But you know, even I will admit and say that this version is the best in terms of characters, dialogue, and all that kind of stuff. It really makes you connect with the characters more. That's a positive. The battle system is really fun. I love that. The game's beautiful as well, man. The graphics are incredible on some parts. I didn't realize it wasn't a CGI cutscene for a lot of it. I was like, oh, this is in-game graphics. Oh shit. That being said, a negative is that a lot of the NPC characters look a bit shit. Like a PS2 era type game. The models are not good on some of these characters. Whereas, you know, all of the main characters look incredible, but some of these other ones don't look good at all. So there is that. But as a whole, I think the game is really great. I think you should check it out. But negatives, like I said, the story is kind of confusing if you haven't played the game before. Because I mean, they've made a few changes and they've, you know, put in extra things, they've added characters, and it's all cool. I like that they've added some stuff in. But I feel if you're somebody who hasn't played Final Fantasy VII, you're just gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle with the game a little bit, knowing what the fuck's going on, who are these characters, especially the ending, which I'll get to in a little while. As for content that's been cut or added, it's interesting how much they've the game definitely is padded out, for sure. The game's padded out. There's so many parts where you have to do loads of side missions. There are some bits where, you know, it does drag on. I think it was Sector 5. If you remember that part of the game on the original, that bit drags on for ages. I found myself skipping through dialogue. I was like, I don't fucking care. Like, don't get me wrong. I cared about the sectors more. I cared about the world, and I cared about the residents of Midgar and just characters in general. I cared about the story more than I probably would have from the original. It was way more slow paced, but I also feel that when the game was slow, it was slow. Do you know what I mean? It was so slow. But it is interesting how, you know, you give this game an inch and it just took 10 miles. You know, the train graveyard is its own massive area. Hojo's lab has this huge bit going on. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it can just feel a bit pointless. And my biggest criticism is that you couldn't just go and level up whenever you wanted. One thing I love about the original is that if you want to level up and go level up your materia and get some AP and all this stuff, you can just leave a town, run around for a bit, keep grinding and fighting monsters, etc, etc. I really love that about the Final Fantasy games. Whereas on this game, you couldn't really. There was actually a part where I was in a sector, I got a new weapon. Got the weapon, I went to go just level up, and I went underneath this little thing you crawl under, and it was just, there was no enemies that spawned for some reason, and I felt kind of trapped. I was like, oh, I can't just go out and farm and level up and grind. And that was kind of a bit annoying. And I guess the story is also quite linear. It actually reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy, not 11, 13. In a lot of regards. A lot of the soundtrack actually sounds like 13, which the soundtrack is incredible, I will say that. Every boss has like its own weird variation of the battle music or the boss music. There's so many tracks in this game, it's unreal. Music, it's just, I don't think I've played a game which can, apart from Smash Bros, I suppose, I can really actually compare to this game in terms of how many tracks there are and variations, and everything's there for the right tone, and you know, the mood and everything's just feels good. I really love that aspect of the game a lot. And just the characterization, like I said, is the main aspect. This is a really, really, really well-made game. It's so polished. The world feels great. Lots of things about it. The only negatives, like I said, were sometimes the NPCs look a bit shit. For example, there's a door. I remember it's really distracting in one of the sectors, and for some reason it just wouldn't load the texture. It looked like a door from PS2, seriously. Maybe, like, it was just so bad. I was like, what is going on? Some of the character models are a bit uneven. Some of the facial animation and motion capture is a bit weird. Especially Johnny. if you play the game, Johnny, for some reason, is really off to me. Just the way he moves and stuff, and this may sound like really weird to say, but I don't know what it is with I think it's just Japanese people. They kind of move a bit weird. Like if you notice like JRPGs and games that are made by Japanese people, the motion capture's like really weird. I don't know, it's just something that I've noticed. They just kind of move a bit weird and stuff. It's really strange. Mouth, some things don't really work, but it's not, it's not like Mass Effect Andromeda type shit. But I'm a bit disappointed that you couldn't play as Red 13. But I'm guessing it'll be playable in the next part. Red 13 was a great character, and I would have loved to, I don't know, be able to actually play as him properly, but obviously that was not a thing. So I was kind of disappointed with that, how it kind of got sidelined a bit, but, it is what it is. Right, well, basically, in a nutshell, if you love Final Fantasy VII, I think it's a really good game, and even if you don't necessarily agree with some story changes, etc., etc., it's still worth playing for the characterization and just seeing Midgar realized in this incredible way, really, when you think about it. I mean, again, I played Final Fantasy VII straight afterwards, and I was like, wow, the difference here is just crazy. I can't even wrap my head around it. I would definitely recommend getting it, for sure. It's quite a long game. It took me about 30 hours not doing every side mission. I did pace myself, and I did pause it a few times. Maybe it wasn't exactly 30 hours. I guess we can say like 27-ish. But it was a very long game. I grinded the hell out of it all weekend, so I really recommend giving it a go and playing it, even if it's not perfect and there are a few missteps. Sector 6, for example, dragged on for so long. I got a bit bored. I was like, come on, man, just let the plot move forward. I want to get to the story. I'm just bored of running about doing side missions, trying to get a dress. I mean, fucking hell, just come on. So it is padded out and a bit uneven in those regards. Now I'm going to talk about the spoiler stuff and then the ending as well. So if you haven't played the game yet, don't carry on watching this. Yeah, basically this is the complete spoiler area here. So when it comes to changes, there are quite a few changes. I was actually kind of upset because they changed one of my favorite parts of the game, which in the original, you actually get captured. I don't remember how, it's been a long time since I played it. Actually not long, maybe like 4 years, but I haven't played it in a while. And there's a part where you get kidnapped and you get put in a cell, and then you basically have to follow a blood trail. And then President Shinra gets killed, right? He's got a sword in him. And they pretty much cut that part out of the game. I also really enjoyed that whole Shinra bit on the original. I liked having to talk to people and try and find the key cards, and it was like a weird puzzle. And that's kind of cut out now as well. It's just linear. It's a linear part of the story. So yeah, that's kind of changed pretty much. So that I was a bit upset about, especially that part of the blood trail. Like I said, they changed it, so now it's Genova's blood, and it's like this weird goo. Which just, I don't know, I liked that horror aspect of it in the original. And they completely took that out, which I was kind of annoyed at. I was a bit upset. But luckily that they kept Rufus in there, and he was one of the best bosses in the game. I thought that boss, it was really difficult, but that boss was so cool. It had awesome moves. It was wicked. I loved it. So yeah, that was a bit annoying because that was the one part I was actually legit excited for. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see the blood, and it's gonna be a horror, and it's gonna be really weird. It wasn't like that at all. The other change they've added, which again, this is spoilers, so I wouldn't recommend watching this at all if you haven't beat the game yet. They basically added in a somewhat plot device. And it's so weird. I can't believe I was even right with this. I was talking to my friend about this game, and I said, I've got a theory that these fucking ghost things are basically trying to like divert the game going the way it's meant to be, and they're going to be like a weird plot device so that the future parts are going to be different. And I cannot believe how much I was right. Although I was wrong that I predicted that the game would just end after this game and there wouldn't be a part 2. That I was wrong about. But it pretty much was the same thing as what I said. There's essentially these ghosts in there that are there to basically put things on track to how the original game went. So at the end of the game, the characters are all like, you know what, nah, we aren't gonna stick with what these ghosts want us to do. We're gonna defy fate. So they add in this part of the game, which wasn't in the original, by the way, where you have to fight these weird tentacle things, and you know, I guess they represent fate and all this shit, right? So you got this part of the game. And I didn't mind that part, I thought it was okay. The problem I had is that after this bit, and spoilers by the way, like I said, don't watch this if you haven't beaten the game yet, you actually fight Sephiroth at the end, and I just thought that was a really weird choice. Now, Because the problem is that it makes it seem like, oh, no, it's this big epic fight. It's got the music and Sephiroth, all this crazy shit, right? But it doesn't work because Sephiroth doesn't really get explored until after Disc 1 on the original game, right? After you leave Midgar. It doesn't really work properly at the moment because Sephiroth's only appeared very briefly. He's a mystery at this point. So you got this big epic fight. It's weird. It's like this part of the game, they essentially said, hey, we want the fans to... this bit is for the fans. If you haven't played Final Fantasy before or really get it, then fuck you. Like, this is for the fans kind of thing. And even as a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, I still didn't really understand why they made that decision to have Sephiroth at the end. It didn't make any sense to me, especially if you're a newcomer to the series and a newcomer to this game. Like, Sephiroth is just going to be some strange, gay-looking man with a long sword. That doesn't sound right. You know what I meant, though. That is basically how he's going to come across. Doesn't make any sense why they decided to have him as the last boss. I really don't understand. They should have had that. Is a new character introduced called Roche or Roche? And I don't even know if he died or something. I don't know. I thought he lived, but I guess he didn't come back for some reason. I have no idea why. They should just had him at the end be the last boss and then say to be continued. But I can also see why they had to change it because, like I said, spoilers to turn around now if you don't want to be completely whatever. Like I said, they defy their fate and they basically succeed. And at the end of the game, it essentially shows events changed that weren't in the original. For example, Biggs is alive somehow for some reason. It's implied that Jesse might be as well. I mean, Wedge actually survived a bit longer in this game than the original, which is strange. There's also a part where Zack seems to be alive. Now, again, if you're somebody who hasn't played the original, you're gonna be like, who the fuck is this guy with the black hair? What is going on? Obviously, for someone like me, it's like, oh, okay, this is weird. Zack lived, okay, what the fuck? So it's basically, essentially what they've done is, they've done an alternate timeline. It's not a remake. This part of Final Fantasy VII, for example, this game can be called Final Fantasy VII Remake, okay, because it mostly is, apart from that 10% where they changed, like, quite a lot, to be honest. Completely changed that bit. But however, the next part will not be a remake. They can do whatever the fuck they want now. They've basically said, right, we need to invent these MacGuffins because making this game is going to be too difficult, too time-consuming, it's going to cost so much money. Like, I was even amazed that they said they're going to remake this game originally, because I was like, are you serious? This game's massive. It's huge. You're going to remake this entire game? That's almost impossible. Legit, that is almost impossible. You saw how long it took them to make Final Fantasy 15, and that game, wasn't even that huge, to be honest. This game legit had a million things going on. So they basically had this MacGuffin thing, and they've basically gone, okay, look, now it's different to the original game. They've defied their fate. Now they can kind of go wherever they want. And that's where we're at right now. And I think that's why some people are kind of annoyed. We basically aren't going to get a proper Final Fantasy VII remake. The Midgar section is a remake for the most part, apart from the ending and the last hour, I guess, with the bosses and Sephiroth and stuff. But from this point on, it's no longer Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that's why they've named it this. This game is Final Fantasy VII Remake. I guarantee they'll call the next game, like, Final Fantasy VII Reanimated, or I don't know, they'll call it something which doesn't have a remake in the title, because that would be a lie. They can justify it with this game because most of it is a remake. And that's why I bring my score down a bit, because I was loving this game so much. Seriously, I was like, this is the best game in a long time. I love it. I don't even care if the game's padded out and it's a bit uneven in parts. Just the fact that it exists is so cool. It's like a blessing in a way. Like, really, we should be thankful this exists. Like, you know what I mean? It's nice seeing these characters interact, and they're in amazing graphics and the voice acting. All this stuff, I'm very thankful that it exists. I'm glad that the game exists. However, when it comes to the future of this remake, I am a bit concerned, because what are they going to do with this? There are moments, for example, that I was really looking forward to seeing remastered and redone. Now they might not even be a thing, because now they can do whatever they want. Square has literally gone, right, look, we're at a point now where from this point on, the game can be whatever we want it to be. And that's where they're at. And that left a bitter taste in my mouth, because one, I don't like time travel stuff. I don't like alternate realities. and all that kind of shit. I really don't like that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I've always had a thing about it. So I didn't like Final Fantasy 13-2 as much as I probably would have. I hate the time travel stuff. I really do. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm saying there's too many questions. There's too many questions. It's uncertain. Because are they going to try and remake Final Fantasy VII but make a few tweaks along the way? Are they going to make its own thing? I mean, I don't know. It's got me a bit like, because it's not a remake anymore. And it kind of left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. But this is the thing, because I was in a bit of a like a, after I did that, I was a bit salty, I'll be honest. I was like, what the fuck? It's almost like a sequel in a way. It's like a remake. It's like a prequel, sequel, weird thing. But I went upstairs after I finished it, I lay in bed, and I downloaded Final Fantasy VII, and after playing 7 for about 10 minutes, I realized, fuck, actually, you know what? It is such a good game regardless, like I said, the characterization, everything about it. I found it hard to get past the first 10 minutes without being like, man, this feels really empty compared to the new version. You know what I mean? Biggs has like 2 lines of dialogue, whereas he has like a whole thing on the beginning, and Jesse and all of that kind of stuff. So it definitely took the edge off a little bit. It makes me really happy that it does exist. Yeah, I felt the ending kind of left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. But as a whole, I think the game's great. I think people should experience it and pick it up. I would say if you are somebody who is interested in Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think you should just play the original first. I know the graphics are really bad now and it's hard to go back to that era. My sister, for example, I always tell her to play it, but she just can't deal with the graphics. She can't go back and do it. So, you know, it is what it is, right? So I can completely see why people can't go back to that era. However, if you can get past that and look past all that shit, I really recommend playing the original first, Final Fantasy VII, and then playing Remake, because I feel you'll get a better sense of the story and what they've changed, what they've added, and you'll appreciate it a lot more as well. Plus, Final Fantasy VII as a whole is just a great game if you can get past, you know, its shortcomings. Same with Remake. Remake's got a few shortcomings as well, but just seeing the world revitalized in this way it is a blessing, man. It's great. I really hope they do more remakes in the future, to be honest. I think I can definitely see them doing 8 at some point, I imagine anyway. So I don't know, I guess time will tell. I am interested to see what they'll do next, considering they can go anywhere and do anything, and apparently some things are going to be changing because Zack's still alive and Biggs and all this stuff, which, again, I don't really agree with, but it is what it is. Anyways, that's my review / ending discussion. Leave a comment down below if you play the game, what your opinions are of it. If you've beaten the game, let me know what you think of the ending. And yeah, that's about it from me. So thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Right, that was my live stream one, so hopefully that went well. I guess we'll see. I'm going to end this live stream now, but if you're watching this live, thank you so much for watching. So I didn't reply to the chat, and if you're watching this on the VOD, again, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. So, salutations. Is it salutations or just bye-bye?